Hello everyone and welcome back to another book review. Today I am reading Ennead Volume 1 by Mojito. This is a book that I found in the news section of my library and I was intrigued. It is a little bit bigger and it was originally a webcomic, I believe. It focuses on Egyptian mythology, so I'm going to talk about the plot of Volume 1, what you can expect, and the parts that I liked in this book that are going to make me keep reading this series. So let's jump in. Ennead. So I was intrigued by the cover initially. I thought the cover was pretty cool, and when I flipped through it, I could tell that the art, let me find a scene that's appropriate. I felt like the art was rather well done. Maybe that one doesn't showcase it. And there are two different art styles used throughout this book. There's a more stylized art style that still ties in with the main art style that is used to kind of tell things that happened in the past or do long-term storytelling. And then we have a more modern webtoony style drawing, cartoon style drawing that's used to describe the current story that we're following throughout this series. So the art really drew me in, and I love Egyptian mythology. I love all mythology. So between those two things, flipping through it and the topic, I decided to take it home and give it a read. So we start with just developing the story, which is just the beginning of the Egyptian gods in Egyptian mythology. There are 9 core gods who make up the Ennead, which was a word I was not familiar with, but that is where the title comes from. And they are in this complex family tree. The family tree is actually, if you get this book, partway through the book. So make sure you bookmark this page somewhere around 127. Because this is going to help you quite a bit. We start with Ra, the sun god, who had a number of children, and we follow this series through the god of air, the god of moisture, who give birth to Geb, the god of earth, and Nut, the god of sky, who have a plethora of children, and their children, Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys, are the 4 main characters in the series, and we also feature 2 of their children, Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, and Anubis, the son of Seth and Nephthys. So this is the family tree that we are working on, and a core member of these individuals make up the Ennead. So we start with the backstory, which just explains the family tree and how they developed, and then we dive into the current predicament, which is what is causing a lot of problems. So Osiris was initially the holder of power. He had some reign, and he was a partner with Isis. And Seth, the god of war, decided to come and kill Osiris. Now, he took Osiris to a dinner, tricked him into drinking or eating something that was poisoned, and then dismembered his body and threw it in the Nile. Egyptian mythology does not hold back. Then Isis, who sensed that her lover or husband's body had been thrown in the Nile, went to retrieve his body and was able to reconstitute him and bring him back to life. They were then able to conceive a child who becomes Horus, but Osiris is not able to stay in the land of the living, and he is now part of the underworld, or now he rules the underworld. So Seth has taken legitimate power over the earth. So Osiris used to have this, but he has now been dethroned, and in his place is Seth, who killed Osiris. So Seth believes that he is legitimately won power. He has killed the previous occupant, and he is not aware that Osiris has been reconstituted and has fathered a child with Isis by the name of Horus. Seth is ruling with cruelty. There's a lot of madness. There's a lot of war, death. Things are not good under the rule of Seth in the world. Now, the world and the individuals in the world don't feature heavily. Humans just seem to be pawns in the game. The gods are playing, and the story of the gods are really the focus of this book. However, Horus comes and challenges Seth, and Seth, not believing that Osiris was able to father a child, and unknowing to him, he has a potential threat, because Horus, being the son of Osiris, may be a legitimate contender to the throne. So Seth seeks to, 1, disprove that Horus has any legitimate claim to the throne, but 2, is also seeking to maybe make sure that Osiris is actually dead. There is another wrench to throw into this whole story, and that is Anubis, who is the son of Seth. Now, of course, if we think about this from Anubis's perspective, his father is currently the holder of power, Seth. So does Anubis, who is watching all of this, and we get the sense of vague horror from Anubis of watching his father commit such horrible cruelty on other people, that is this something he wants to support, or does he want to support maybe Horus or Osiris getting their legitimate power back through a series of feats, or there's going to be a competition of sorts as decided at the end of this book. But in doing so, Anubis would then kind of lose his position in this chain of power. So we have a competition, and there is a power struggle for the right to rule between Osiris, and more specifically Osiris' son Horus, and the god of war Seth. And of course, we have an interesting mix with Seth's son Anubis, who is a young boy who is watching on. That is the general overview of Volume 1. Again, Volume 1 is a lot of setup. I think it's setting up for what's going to happen in future volumes, but I think it was a pretty good setup and pretty intriguing, especially because the Egyptian mythology can get quite complicated. I do know this because I read and reviewed on my channel another book on Egyptian mythology called Pantheon, which is also in a comic book style. Please be warned that that book, kind of similar to this book, but more for Pantheon, neither of these are really aimed for kids. This one is in the teen section. I think a teen could read this. A teen would probably also be able to read Pantheon, but neither of them are for children, especially Pantheon is not for children because also, as mentioned before, Egyptian mythology does not hold back, and that one is quite explicit. So Pantheon was similar. It was a comic story retelling of Egyptian mythology, and it was quite interesting and quite good. This book is similar to Pantheon only in the sense that they're both drawing from the same mythology base, but this one, Ennead, is more story based. It's more narrative based, and there's more interplay between the gods instead of just a modern retelling of exactly what happened in Egyptian mythology. Now this leads into my next point. When I got this home, and remember, I looked at the cover, I saw Egyptian mythology, I flipped through and saw the art style, and I was intrigued. So it wasn't until I took it home and I flipped it over to the back where I read, this hit boys love webtoon is a reimagining of one of the oldest myths in human civilization. I didn't know this was boys love. So, and I'm not necessarily opposed to boys love. So let me just start there. This isn't, oh, I guess it says at the top too in full color. I was just blind in the library, we're learning. The full color boys love comic manhwa hit inspired by ancient Egyptian mythology. Cool. I'm not opposed to boys love. However, I thought this was a mythology. You definitely start to get some vibes of some sort of romance subplot or B-plot going on. However, the art and the story is good enough for me to keep reading. However, I'm not sure who the boys love is between. At first, I thought it was going to be between Anubis and Horus, who inherently are vaguely antagonistic due to their fathers being opposed to one another. But then Osiris got mixed into some sort of suggestive dialogue towards the end of the book, and I thought maybe Osiris was being brought into here. And also all of these, or many of these men are having children with women, so I don't know what is going on exactly or who the boys love story is going to be between. I also didn't realize it was a boys love series when I checked it out, so that was a little surprise for me when I read it. So I do not want you to be similarly surprised if for whatever reason boys love is not your thing, or you don't want any romance subplot other than what was actually in the Egyptian mythology to be present. But if I remember correctly from Pantheon, the gods got around, so I mean, I guess it's probably canonically accurate, but this has a little bit of a softer touch than Pantheon. I will just say that. I get the sense that Ennead is going to be a little bit softer in the romance aspect, in the sense that the story is going to be softer. In Pantheon, things were just happening. I absolutely loved Ennead, despite the surprise of the boys love aspect. I love the art style, I love the storytelling, I like the way it was set up. Again, it was a lot of setup, but I feel like the setup really teed Volume 2 up to be a very fantastic volume. I'd already checked a library that I have access to has Volume 2, so I'm going to be retrieving that because I am so excited for this series. I love it. I'm so glad I pulled this off on a whim. Sometimes the books that I just go in and pull off without any preparation wind up being the best books to read. And I'm glad that I read this. I read this in one sitting. It was fantastic. And if you're looking for an Egyptian mythology series to read, then I would recommend checking out Ennead because this was very, very enjoyable. If you read this series or have any thoughts on this series, please leave your comments in the comment section down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.